I found my husband's therapy journal on a Tuesday afternoon in March, not hidden, exactly just tucked between his golf magazines on the shelf in our home office here in Vancouver. I was looking for the homeowner's insurance documents. We'd had a small leak in the roof, nothing serious, but I needed to file a claim. That's how these moments happen, isn't it? You're searching for something mundane, and you find your entire life turned inside out. The journal was navy blue, leather-bound, nothing special. When I opened it, I recognized Dr. Patterson's letterhead at the top of the first page. Homework assignment, it said. Write honestly about your emotional landscape. No one will see this but you and me. I should have closed it, I know that. But my husband Richard and I had been married for 38 years. We'd raised 3 children in this house. I'd made approximately 13,000 dinners, organized countless family gatherings, supported him through 2 career changes. Surely, after all that, I'd earned the right to understand why he'd been so distant lately. The first entry was dated January 15th, 2 months earlier. Dr. Patterson asked me today when I last felt genuine desire for Margaret. The question made my stomach hurt, not because I had to think hard, but because the answer came too quickly. I don't think I ever have. Not the way other men describe it. Not the consuming, can't keep your hands off them kind of feeling. I sat down on the office floor. The insurance documents forgotten. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the journal in my lap to keep reading. I married Margaret because she was everything my mother told me to look for. Stable, kind, good with money. She came from a respectable family. She was studying to be a nurse. When I proposed after dating for 18 months, everyone said I was lucky to find someone so capable. And I was, wasn't I? She's been an incredible partner, an amazing mother. The house is always beautiful. She remembers everyone's birthdays. She packs my lunch every morning with a little note inside. There it was, 38 years summarized, capable, partner, amazing mother, not beloved, not cherished, not desired. I kept reading, even though each word felt like a small knife. But when she reaches for my hand at night, I have to remind myself not to pull away. When she kisses me, I'm thinking about my to-do list. Last week she bought new lingerie, something burgundy and lacy, and all I could think was how much effort she was putting in and how guilty I felt that I couldn't muster any enthusiasm. I remembered that nightgown. I'd seen it at the Bay during their Valentine's sale. $62, which felt extravagant, but I'd thought maybe it would help. We'd been intimate exactly twice in the past year, both times feeling more like obligation than connection. I'd wondered if it was my fault, if I'd let myself go, if I wasn't trying hard enough. Apparently, I'd been trying too hard. That was somehow worse. The next entry was dated 3 weeks later, February 7th, our granddaughter Emma's birthday party. I remembered that day clearly. I'd made Emma's favorite lemon cake from scratch, decorated it with buttercream roses in varying shades of pink and yellow. Richard had seemed fine that day, smiled for all the photos. Played with Emma in the backyard. Today was Emma's birthday. Margaret outdid herself with the cake, must have spent hours on it. Everyone raved about it. She was glowing from the praise, and I felt nothing except this creeping dread. Is this all my life is? Watching someone else be happy while I feel like I'm observing from behind glass? I'd noticed he seemed tired that day. I'd assumed it was work stress. He'd recently taken on a major project at the engineering firm where he'd worked for 23 years. I'd rubbed his shoulders that evening, brought him tea, told him to relax while I cleaned up, always taking care of him, always trying to ease his burden. And he was behind glass, watching me, feeling nothing. The entries continued. Page after page of my husband's inner life, a landscape I'd never seen. He wrote about feeling trapped, about wondering what his life would have been like if he'd married someone else, someone who made his heart race. He wrote about a woman at his firm, Diane, who'd recently transferred from their Toronto office. "I'm not having an affair," one entry said. "I need to be clear about that, even just to myself. But when Diane laughs at my jokes, I feel something spark." It's not even about her specifically. It's about the feeling, the possibility, the reminder that I'm capable of feeling attracted to someone, just not my wife. I don't know how long I sat there, long enough that my left foot fell asleep, long enough that the afternoon light shifted across the hardwood floor, long enough for our cat, Pepper, to come investigate why I was sitting in an unusual spot. When I finally stood up, I was 64 years old and felt ancient. My knees cracked. My back ached. I caught my reflection in the window gray hair I'd stopped coloring last year, comfortable fleece pullover, jeans from Costco. When had I become invisible? I put the journal back exactly where I'd found it. Then I went to the kitchen and started making dinner. Pork chops, roasted potatoes, green beans, Richard's favorite meal. Habit and muscle memory carried me through. Brown the chops. Season with garlic and rosemary. Set the timer. He came home at 6:15, same as always. Kissed my cheek, same as always. Asked how my day was, same as always. Fine, I said. Yours? Long meeting with the client, but it went well. We ate dinner. We watched Jeopardy. We each read in bed for 30 minutes before he turned off his light and said goodnight. I lay there in the dark, listening to him breathe, this stranger I'd spent 38 years beside. In the morning, I made his lunch. Roast beef sandwich on rye, apple slices, homemade cookies. I wrote the note, "Have a great day. Love M," same as I'd done approximately 9,000 times before. But this time, I also made an appointment with a lawyer. I didn't confront Richard immediately. I needed to understand first, needed to see if the journal entries were just a phase, a moment of crisis, something that would pass. So I kept reading. Every few days when he was at work, I'd check for new entries. March 23rd, Dr. Patterson asked if I'd ever told Margaret the truth. I said no. He asked why not. I said because she'd be devastated, and what's the point? It's not like I'm leaving. Where would I even go? I'm 67 years old. We have a life together, 3 kids, 6 grandchildren. Margaret runs everything, the household, finances, the social calendar, all the family stuff. Without her, I wouldn't know when anyone's birthday was or how to operate the washing machine. Is that love? I don't know anymore. But it's something. It's comfortable. It's what we have. Comfortable. That word lodged in my chest like a splinter. Our daughter Claire called that evening. She wanted to plan a surprise party for Richard's 68th birthday in May. Make it special, Mom. You know how much Dad loves when you go all out. Did he? Did he love it? Or did he just accept it, the way you accept a gift you don't particularly want, but smile anyway because it would be rude not to? Mom? You still there? Yes, sorry. I think a party sounds lovely. I planned the party. Of course I did. Booked the community center. Made a spreadsheet of guests. Coordinated with the kids about gifts. Researched caterers because Claire thought I shouldn't have to do all the cooking myself this time. April 14th. Margaret is planning some big party for my birthday. I can tell she's stressed about it, keeps asking me questions about the guest list, about whether I'd prefer salmon or prime rib. I don't care. I've never cared about birthday parties. I just want a quiet day, maybe 18 holes of golf. But I can't tell her that because she's already put in hours of work. So I'll smile and say thank you and feel like a fraud, doctor. Patterson says I need to start being honest about my needs, but honesty feels cruel when the other person has tried so hard. I closed the journal, sat at his desk. Outside the window, cherry blossoms were starting to bloom along our street. Spring in Vancouver, the season I'd always loved best. Our youngest son, Michael, stopped by that weekend. He was 32, recently engaged to a wonderful woman named Priya. They'd met at a medical conference, both physicians, both passionate about their work. I'd watched them together at family dinners, the way Michael looked at Priya like she was the most fascinating person in the room. "Mom," Michael said, helping me fold laundry in the living room, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetie." "How did you know Dad was the one? Like, what made you sure?" I paused, a towel half folded in my hands. How did I answer that? The truth was, I'd been 23 years old, and Richard had been 26, stable, good-looking, pursuing a solid career. My mother had approved. My friends had been jealous. I'd felt chosen. But had I felt cherished? "He was reliable," I said finally. "Kind. I knew he'd be a good father." Michael nodded slowly. But were you in love? Like, crazy about him? Love grows, I said, repeating what my mother had told me. It changes over the years. I guess. He looked uncertain. It's just Priya makes me feel like I could talk to her for 10 hours straight and still want more time. I can't imagine that feeling fading. After he left, I cried for the first time. Not dramatic sobbing, just quiet tears while I finished the laundry. I cried for my younger self who'd settled, for my current self who'd tried so hard to earn something that was never going to be given, for all the notes in lunchboxes and shoulder rubs and beautiful dinners that had meant, look how much I love you, but had been received as look how much service I provide. The journal entry from April 29th was the one that broke me. I had lunch with Diane today, just the two of us, working on the project specs. She was wearing this blue dress, and the sunlight through the restaurant window caught her hair, and I felt it, that ache of wanting. We didn't do anything inappropriate. Didn't even flirt, really. But walking back to the office, I realized I was happy, actually, genuinely happy. And then I came home and Margaret had made pot roast and was excited to tell me about some documentary she'd watched, and I felt nothing except tired. Dr. Patterson asked if I'd considered leaving, starting over. I'm 67 years old. Is that even possible? Would it be fair to Margaret after all these years? She'd be destroyed. And truthfully, she's been such a good wife. She doesn't deserve to be abandoned because I can't feel what I should feel. I made my decision that night. I found Richard in the den, watching a hockey game. I sat down beside him and said, "We need to talk." He muted the TV. "What's wrong?" "I found your therapy journal." The color drained from his face. "Margaret, I can explain." "No," I said quietly. "You can't. There's no explanation that makes this better. You've spent 38 years not loving me, performing love, and I spent 38 years trying to earn something you were never capable of giving. That's not fair. I do love you." "Do you?" I looked at him directly. "Or do you love the services I provide? The clean house and the social calendar and the grandchildren's birthday parties? Because, Richard, there's a difference between loving someone and appreciating their usefulness." He was quiet for a long time. Then, "I never meant to hurt you." "I know." And I did know. That was almost worse. He wasn't cruel. He was just absent. "But you have, for decades, and I can't do this anymore." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I deserve to be with someone who actually wants me, who looks forward to coming home to me, who feels something when I walk into a room." My voice was shaking, but I kept going. "I'm 64 years old. I might have 20 good years left, maybe 30 if I'm lucky. I'm not spending them being someone's convenient arrangement." "Where will you go?" The question revealed everything. Not "please don't leave" or "we can fix this," just the practical concern about logistics. "I've rented an apartment near Claire. 1 bedroom, downtown. I can walk to the seawall." I'd signed the lease 2 weeks ago, on one of the days I'd told him I was at book club. "I'm taking Pepper. You can have the house." "I don't want it anymore. It's full of memories of me trying too hard." "Margaret, please, we can go to counseling together." "We can. You've been in therapy for months and never once suggested I join you, because you didn't want to fix us. You wanted to figure out how to live with not wanting me." I moved out on a Saturday in May, 1 week before the birthday party I'd planned. Our children were devastated, Claire cried. Michael looked betrayed. Our oldest, David, who was 40 and had always been closest to his father, called me selfish. "You don't just leave a marriage after almost 40 years, David said, his voice hard on the phone. "People go through rough patches. You work through them." "Your father has never been in love with me," I said simply. "That's not a rough patch. That's the foundation of our entire relationship, and I'm done building on broken ground." The birthday party was canceled. Richard told everyone it was mutual, that we'd been growing apart. I didn't correct him. Let him have his version of the story. I spent my first night in the new apartment sitting on the small balcony, drinking tea, watching the lights of the city. Pepper curled up in my lap. I felt terrified and small, and also this surprised me, hopeful. The freedom was disorienting at first. No one to make lunch for, no social calendar to manage except my own. The apartment was quiet in a way our house never was. No grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, no creaking pipes, no history pressing down on me. I started small, joined a watercolor painting class on Tuesday evenings, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. Started walking the seawall every morning, watching the sunrise over the mountains. Let myself sleep in on Saturdays instead of getting up to make someone else's breakfast. Claire visited often those first few months. She'd bring Emma, who was 8 now, and thought my small apartment was cozy like a nest. They helped me pick out new furniture, nothing from the old house, everything fresh, a teal sofa, yellow curtains, plants I could actually keep alive because I had time to care for them. "Are you lonely?" Claire asked one afternoon, while Emma was on the balcony drawing. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But it's better than feeling lonely while sitting next to someone." She understood. Her own marriage had its struggles. "Did you ever love Dad?" she asked quietly. "I loved the idea of him. I loved the life we built, but I'm not sure I ever knew the real him, and I'm certain he never knew the real me. I was too busy being what I thought a wife should be." Michael came around eventually, called one Sunday morning and said, "Priya and I broke up." My heart sank. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." "Don't be. I realized I was doing what you did, settling for good enough because it looked right on paper. But after watching you leave Dad, Mom, you taught me that I deserve more than comfortable. I deserve extraordinary." It was the first time I'd thought of my divorce as teaching my children something valuable rather than damaging them. I met Henry at a gallery opening in September. I'd gone alone, something I'd never done before, walked into a public event without a partner. I was looking at a landscape painting, autumn trees reflected in water, when a voice beside me said, "Makes you want to dive right in, doesn't it?" He was 71, retired high school English teacher, wearing a corduroy jacket with patches on the elbows. He had kind eyes and an easy laugh. "I'm not much of a swimmer," I said. "Me neither. But I like the idea of it." We talked for 2 hours. Closed down the gallery. He asked for my number. I gave it to him. Our first date was coffee. Our second was a walk through the Van Dusen Botanical Garden. Our third was dinner at a small Italian place where he told me about his wife who died of cancer 6 years ago, how he still missed her every day but had learned that grief and joy could coexist. "I'm not looking to replace her," he said, "but I'm also not ready to be done living." That's when I told him about Richard, about the journal, about 38 years of being a good wife to a man who'd never actually wanted me. Henry reached across the table and took my hand. "His loss," he said simply, "and if I'm very lucky, my gain." When Henry kissed me for the first time, we were standing outside my apartment building, November rain falling softly around us. I felt it, that spark, that ache of wanting. At 64 years old, for the first time in my life, I understood what I'd been missing. We didn't rush, took it slow, but 6 months later, when he asked if I'd consider moving in with him, I said yes. Not because it was practical or because my family approved or because it made sense on paper, but because when he looked at me, I felt seen. When he touched me, I felt cherished. When he said he loved me, I believed him. Richard called occasionally those first few years, usually about practical things, tax documents, insurance papers. Sometimes he'd ask how I was, and I'd say fine, and we'd both pretend that was a sufficient answer. But once, about 2 years after I'd left, he called, and his voice was different, thick, like he'd been crying. "I made a mistake," he said, "not being honest with you, not trying harder. I took you for granted." "Yes," I said, "you did. Is it too late? Could we try again?" I looked around Henry's living room, my plants on the windowsill, my books on the shelves, Pepper asleep in a patch of sunlight, Henry in the kitchen making lunch, humming off-key. "Richard," I said gently, "you never wanted me. You wanted what I did for you, and I spent decades trying to be enough. But enough for someone who doesn't actually want you is still never enough." "I'm sorry," he said. "I know. I forgive you. But I'm not coming back." The hardest part wasn't leaving Richard. It was learning who I was without the role of wife to define me. It was letting go of all the years I'd invested and accepting they hadn't been wasted. They'd taught me everything I didn't want. I'm 69 now. Henry and I have been together for 5 years. We're not married, neither of us feels the need. We have breakfast together every morning on the balcony when weather permits. We go to galleries and concerts. We read books and discuss them. We laugh often. And yes, at our age, we still reach for each other in the night, and it still feels like something I want rather than something I endure. My children have slowly come to accept my choices. Emma, who's 13 now, told me last month, "Grandma, you're cooler than you used to be." High praise from a teenager. If I could go back and tell my 23-year-old self anything, it would be this: don't marry someone because they're a good choice. Marry someone because you can't imagine not choosing them every single day. Don't build a life trying to earn love. Find someone who gives it freely, or wait until you do. And if you're 64 and you find a therapy journal that reveals you've spent decades being unloved, it's not too late. It's never too late to choose yourself, because here's what I learned. You can't make someone love you by being perfect. You can't earn desire through service. You can't force chemistry with commitment. And staying in a marriage where you're appreciated but not wanted isn't noble, it's just sad. I deserved more. You deserve more. We all deserve to be with someone who doesn't just tolerate our presence but celebrates it. Someone who doesn't see us as convenient but as essential. Someone who, after 38 years or 3 days or any amount of time, still looks at us and feels lucky. Richard moved to Victoria last year, started dating someone from his therapy group. I hope he's found what he was looking for. I genuinely do. As for me, I found something better. I found myself. And then I found someone who loves the self I found. That's the story I needed 38 years to learn, but I'm grateful I learned it before it was too late.